Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Alex Jones. Thank you so much for joining us. I got to tell you, reading the two-page cover letter that the president's lawyer wrote tells you more than the memo itself does. It's exactly what Congressman Gates earlier this week told us it would be. It is exactly what we knew it would be. It is a codified indictment of the compendium of what we know with the Democrats organizing this fraud to stop Trump from becoming president. And then once he was elected, to try to remove him from the presidency. A classic conspiracy, and we have their text messages, we have witnesses, we have all of it. But Trump's being very judicious. As president, he learned of it. He then sent it to the House, the intelligence. They investigated, said, yes, this is really horrible. And now the president says, well, if you need more information, we'll have to have it reviewed by the Director of National Intelligence and by the Justice Department. We'll send that on over to you. So what it really is a giant warning. We caught you. We have you red-handed. Stop denying it. We don't want to, quote, hurt the FBI. We don't want to put you all in prison. You need to stop now your fraud. You've been caught. It's a site called InfoWars, and it's an interface to the people of the planet awakening to global enslavement.
This is the heart of 1776.
InfoWars, tomorrow's news today.
One thing that happens when you make as many wild, unproven claims as Trump does is that the people around you have to go to increasingly ridiculous lengths to try to defend those claims. And this weekend we saw another example of that when White House counselor Kellyanne Conway was asked if she had any proof for Trump's outlandish claim that Obama wiretapped him during the campaign, and offered this bizarre answer.
How does he know that his phone was actually tapped?
Let me answer that globally. He's the president of the United States. He has information and intelligence that the rest of us do not.
You know what? Yeah, I'll agree with that. Trump has intelligence that I definitely do not. I agree. Listen, people, one more time. Trump's accusation is ridiculous and pathetic.
He's suggesting a U.S. president enlisted a foreign intelligence service to spy on a political adversary. That is an explosive charge.
This is a serious allegation. This might be the most serious allegation any president has made against a previous president.
But this is a very serious allegation for a sitting president to make about his predecessor.
Trump tweeted, terrible, just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. And the other one, how low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon Watergate, bad or sick guy. He said Obama is either a bad or sick guy. Maybe he means him as compliments. Like, yeah, man, he's bad. He's a bad guy.
The NSA's deputy director told the BBC it was arrant nonsense, revealing a complete lack of understanding in how the relationship works. And for their part, GCHQ called the accusations utterly ridiculous. And yet, rather than distancing himself from Spicer, Trump decided to back him up.
Are you asking, did I wiretap Donald Trump? Of course, I did it.
How low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon/Watergate.
Hello? Hey, Barack. Sorry, we have to investigate you on this wiretapping thing.
But you know I didn't do that.
I know, but we still have to investigate it. Otherwise, it'll look like I'm just mentally unstable.
The craziest thing about Trump calling for an investigation without any evidence, zero evidence, Trump has not produced a shred of evidence.
There is no evidence for Trump's claims.
The evidence did not come.
So where did Trump get his info? From the CIA? From the FBI?
Where are you getting this information?
From a very reputable source.
What, the FBI, the CIA?
InfoWars. It's a radio show hosted by Alex Jones. You know he's legit.
We're about to go to the full remarks of the president just 15 minutes ago or so on the bombshell congressional memo that details links and a roadmap to a larger investigation that is now going to be launched into the confirmed political operation at the Justice Department starting in the summer of 2016 before the RNC, then when he was the nominee, and then when he was president-elect for 2 months, spying on his entire entourage, the Republican Party, Republican members of Congress, yours truly, and a roadmap to demonize and call everyone who is victorious in the American resistance against the globalist Russian agents. And the document is up on Infowars.com. Yes, the document, the original document that we broke last Tuesday, that the media used a Jedi mind trick and said, oh, well, that's declassified. That's not the secret part. It's the roadmap of this memo, and it's now confirmed that it is the blacked out areas that are being pointed out in this new memo that shows, here's the key, being reported by all the newspapers now, that it shows criminal activity lying to the FISA court not once, not twice, but 3 times. What did I say last week over and over again and every hour, every day? Again, FISA memo confirms surveillance of Trump campaign was based on dodgy Steele dossier. That's Paul's latest article. But let's go back to last week's article where we published the full memo that the Director of National Intelligence had published on their website that was hiding in plain view, that had excised portions, but only about 10%, road mapping 3 times that people went to the court and the court said, we believe what you're doing is illegal, so they would come back, excluding the political nature of it and lying about their intelligence to get the warrants, which we now know were illegal and fraudulent and political. Read page 19 of the 99-page memo. This is what Nunes based the proof of the perjury to Congress about what the FBI, Democrat leadership did, the Democrat moles in the FBI. That's what it is. And then it expands into them lying to also get the 3 warrants, exactly as we told you. William Binney is obviously being advised by not just WikiLeaks, but the CIA. He's the former technical head of the NSA. He came on last week and for an hour laid everything out in front of you. Then we had Congressman Gates on to lay it out, saying the roadmap is coming out. That's all this is the roadmap. The president's going to fight back. We have the proof they've colluded. Well, that's bombshell. But this is just the beginning. And it's them lying to the court 3 times. Here, pull up the Washington Examiner. It's linked on drudgereport.com. And read what they say the main finding is. That they lied to the FISA court, and the judges now recuse themselves, that they lied to the court to get the memo. And what does the court say? They say, we were lied to. This was illegal. 3 times. They just blacked out who came to them and who did it. Well, Nunes can read the blacked out parts. Oh, but let's not listen to William Binney, former technical director of the NSA, or anybody else of these congressmen we have on. Let's listen to CNN and Media Matters saying, I hoaxed everyone and this had nothing to do with it. When, oh, I'm sorry, the CIA, just said, hey, you're going on Alex's show today. You really need to cover this because this is the real memo. But just don't listen to us ever, of course. So you get next week's news today. So here's the big news. Again, they lied to get the 3 warrants when he was about to be nominated. It's all right here. When it was about to be nominated. Then it happened again once he was nominated, and then it happened when he became president-elect. 3 different warrants to track everything, trying to find something, trying to get Russians in to see him. Okay, we have the memo now. It is posted on Infowars.com in the Kit Daniels article with that same headline. It just went live, just as I told you. We get it the next 15 minutes, and here it is, Infowars.com. Hit refresh on the article that is on Infowars.com, and you will be able to see the memo. But for TV viewers, document cam, please. Let's start going over this. And again, this has been released by the White House. They were telling us that Congress was going to be releasing it, our sources, and I guess they probably released their own copy. But this is on White House letterhead, February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, 2018. Here is the memo. And it is a detailed 4-page memo. And just as we knew, it is unclassified sections detailing and tying it all together with the proof of the testimonies in Congress and then the perjury and then the lying to the federal court to get the document and to get the warrants, which is also perjury. We have them up one side and down the other, my friends. This is devastating. So now, Infowars.com. Send the link out to everybody. Infowars.com/show or Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're watching, or local radio stations or TV stations. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your family, your coworkers, people that disagree with you. Go read this for yourself, because this is all, just looking at it, is exactly what we knew was there. How they did it, how they carried it out, where they perjured themselves, the crimes that have been committed. It's all laid out in a devastating 4-page memo detailing the FISA court and then the public statements and all of it. This is incredible. So, the Honorable Devin Nunes, this is on the letterhead, the White House, Washington, February 2nd, 2018. The Honorable Devin Nunes, Chairman, House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, United States Capitol. And boy, they're going after Nunes, calling it treason, saying they want him arrested, that he's getting all these death threats because the guy's a patriot and isn't selling the country out. We finally have some good men in Congress who've got huevos of steel. On January 29, 2018, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, hereafter the committee, voted to disclose publicly a memorandum containing classified information provided to the committee in connection with the oversight activities. Oh, by the way, we're now learning what Adam Schiff is saying is forgery, because they took the memo and changed it into letterhead and fixed a typo from their original letter. That's now been confirmed. So, again, they're saying fraud is fixing a typo from one letter to what the White House put out. So let's continue with this incredible information. On January 29, 2018, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, hereafter, the committee voted to disclose publicly a memorandum containing classified information provided to the committee in connection with its oversight activities. The memorandum, which is attached to this letter, as provided by Clause 11G of Rule X of the House of Representatives, the committee has forwarded this memorandum to the President based on its determination that the release of the memorandum should serve the public interest. The Constitution vests the President with the authority to protect national security secrets from disclosure. As the Supreme Court has recognized, it is the President's responsibility to classify and declassify. We're going to stop right there. When we come back, they're laying out the legal precedent for them to even release this memo, because they knew they'd come after him for it. And then they get into a basic breakdown and then key exhibit points that will now be released to the public. Stay with us as we read the memo that strikes fear into the deep state and the multinational criminal combines burrowed inside our government. We're not playing around with the resistance to globalism, communism, pedophilia, the globalists, the narcissistic filth, the communist Chinese, the NWO, Hollywood, the disgusting, filthy NFL. All of it can go back to hell where it came from. We're knocking them dead. We have the memo, and I've had a chance to look over it during the break. It's exactly what our congressional sources said it was. And you first got the White House 2 pages describing why Donald F. McGahn, the second counsel of the president, decided that the president was going to authorize its release. And they state via the executive branch their executive power to release it if they wish. They're calling it treason that the president's released it, claiming it's illegal. You've got New York State claiming that feds getting rid of the exemption above $10,000 for property taxes or income taxes, state income taxes, is illegal, and they're suing over that. It's pure crap. There's no precedent in law anywhere. And they were arrogant about the memo a few weeks ago. Now they have been in desperate chicken with their heads cut off mode. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the memo here. The Constitution vests the president with the authority to protect national security secrets from disclosure. As the Supreme Court has recognized, it is the president's responsibility to classify and declassify and control access to information bearing on our intelligence sources and methods of national defense. And they list the U.S. Code. In order to facilitate appropriate congressional oversight, the executive branch may entrust classified information to the appropriate committees of Congress, as it is done in connection with the committee's oversight activities. The president's telling you he quarterbacked this from January 20th. First thing he did was go in there and find out, okay, who did the unmasking? The former president, sir. Here's the order. Here's the FISA document. Heads up displays. He was given 3-hour briefings, I'm told. I know some of the folks that were in the room. And outside the room getting the further reports. Then he marched over to the CIA, then the NSA. He pulled it all up, looked at it all, saw how they tracked him, followed him, listened to everything, tried to put people on him, tried to set him up with the Russians. And then he sat back while they lied and let them set themselves up, perjuring themselves to Congress when he knew everything they were doing. He even let McCabe and Comey come in and perjure themselves to Congress, lie to him face to face. He played dumb the whole time. And now we can tell you what we did to you, scum. We set you up the whole time. Hope you enjoy yourselves. Part of the story that Mueller was secretly on the president's side, the only truth to that is that the president was setting them up the whole time. Fools, your arrogance is what will destroy you. Excuse me, let me just get back into this. I'm sorry. Just, if you know how to read this stuff, see what the letter says. The president released this. The president did this. The president gave it to Congress. The president met. Of course he did. It's his authority to give the intelligence on criminal groups inside our country trying to overthrow our election and our republic and shut down the free press. They keep asking, has Nunes met with the president? Has Nunes talked about this? Of course he has. It's what the president's supposed to do. You are an outside threat. You are enemy combatants. Let's continue, ladies and gentlemen. The Supreme Court has recognized it as the president's responsibility to classify and declassify and control access to information bearing on our intelligence sources and methods and national defense. See, they forgot who they are in the government. They're there to serve the people. In order to facilitate appropriate congressional oversight, the executive branch may entrust classified information to the appropriate committee of Congress as it is done in connection with the committee's oversight activities here. The executive branch does so on the assumption that the committee will responsibly protect such classified information consistent with the laws of the United States. The committee has now determined that the release of the memorandum would be appropriate. The executive branch across administrations, both parties, has worked to accommodate congressional requests to declassify specific materials in the public interest. He gave the investigation to the proper body, the House. They investigated. They said, yes, this is terrible. And now, boom. However, public release of classified information by unilateral actions of the legislative branch is extremely rare and raises significant separation of powers concerns. Accordingly, the committee's request to release the memorandum is interpreted as a request for declassification pursuant to the president's authority. So he did it, again, as the president. He initiated it. He gave it to the investigative body, the House. That's an impeachment or any other matter. They begin the investigation. And now the indictment has been handed back to the American people. Powerful. Powerful. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, as the president just said. The committee has now determined that the release of the memorandum would be appropriate. The executive branch across administrations, and it goes on. Under the president's authority, the president understands that the protection of our national security represents his highest obligations. Accordingly, he has directed lawyers and national security staff to assess for the declassification request consistent with the establishment standards governing the handling of classified information, including those under Section 3.1D of Executive Order 13526. Those standards permit declassification when the public interest is disclosure outweighs any need to protect the information. That's a repeat of the National Security Act, basically, as well. The White House review process has included input from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That's who originally released the actual heart of the matter, the main internal memo. The White House review process also includes input from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice. Consistent with the review of the standards, the president has determined declassification of the memorandum is appropriate. And the same program went on to release this to the public, the one we released last week. Based on this assessment and in light of the significant public interest in the memorandum, the president has authorized the classification of the memorandum. To be clear, the memorandum reflects the judgments of its congressional authors. The president understands that oversight concerns matters related to the memorandum may be continuing. Though the circumstances leading to the declassification through the process are extraordinary, the executive branch stands ready to work with Congress to accommodate oversight requests consistent with the applicable standards and process, including the need to protect intelligence sources and methods. Let me boil that down for you. We got a lot more we're going to give to Congress that will dwarf this if the Democrats and the globalists and the corrupt people at the top of the FBI don't roll over. If you don't roll over, and if you keep having this war to try to stop the recovery and all the rest of it, we got everything on you, Jack, just like our military source, Zach, was saying. They got everything, all of it. And if you want to play hardball, let's do it. Soros and all of it, just keep pushing. No one stood up to you. You had a Republican leadership that you were in bed with before. You're facing opposition that now has the presidency, most of the states, and most of the courts. You will be defeated. Only a nuke attack, taking out the president and the Republican leadership like they could have done at that West Virginia event with the whole situation. I mean, they shouldn't all be in one place at one time. I don't think that's smart, unless the Democrats are there as well. And they still might wipe out their own people in a sacrifice. I mean, these are serious people we're up against, okay? I mean, George Soros was happy to round up thousands of fellow Jews and send them off to death camps. And the left loves him for that. They think that's powerful. They like that. Let's continue here. So that is released to the Speaker of the House by the President and to the Honorable Adam Schiff, ranking member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. So that is the letter from the president's lawyer explaining that Trump learned of this secret information as the president, the criminal activity. He then gave it to the House Intelligence Committee, and they have now handed the indictment to the public. And that's why you'd see headlines like, the White House is getting their intel from InfoWars because they're the ones saying that Trump was being spied on. That was all made up. We knew because the Democrats had bragged about it during the campaign, thinking that Hillary would win. I mean, so it's just amazing. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, the actual 4-page memo, I will read it on air. That was the hors d'oeuvre in explaining the attack profile, the legalness of this, and what's coming next. Now we'll go to the memo itself on the other side. Infowars.com. Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Alex Jones. Thank you so much for joining us. I got to tell you, reading the 2-page cover letter that the president's lawyer wrote tells you more than the memo itself does. It's exactly what Congressman Gates earlier this week told us it would be. It is exactly what we knew it would be. It is a codified indictment of the compendium of what we know with the Democrats organizing this fraud to stop Trump from becoming president. And then once he was elected, to try to remove him from the presidency. A classic conspiracy, and we have their text messages, we have witnesses, we have all of it. But Trump's being very judicious. As president, he learned of it. He then sent it to the House, the intelligence. They investigated, said, yes, this is really horrible. And now the president says, well, if you need more information, we'll have to have it reviewed by the Director of National Intelligence and by the Justice Department. We'll send that on over to you. So what it really is a giant warning. We caught you. We have you red-handed. Stop denying it. We don't want to, quote, hurt the FBI. We don't want to put you all in prison. You need to stop now your fraud. You've been caught. You're the ones up to your eyeballs with the Russians. But just as I've told the president every time I've talked to him, they're never going to stop. And if they make deals, sir, they're going to break them. And they do. Because they're so used to being in power. You look at Pelosi and Schumer, and I mean, they look like crazy villains out of a Batman movie or something. I mean, Batman villains don't look that nutty and that ugly. And that, I mean, look at Schumer, the way he was acting, and Michael Moore. And I mean, these are really a bunch of losers who know they're losers. So they crave running everything because they're such sacks of garbage. But enough of that. The memo is everything we already knew. It just lines it up and lets Congress tell the public what they found and then let the establishment know, this is a big warning to you. Get out of the way of America's recovery. Stop your lies. Stop your fraud. And they can't stop. They're going to come out. They're going to attack this. They're going to lie. They can't help it. And then Moore's just going to get released. And Mueller's not going to stop. He's going to have a grand jury indict a sitting president, never before been done, isn't even constitutional. And they've got Politico articles and Reuters articles every day saying, well, lawyers now say Trump could be removed by a jury. Well, then there's no separation of powers. The jury is the House of Representatives. They're the grand jury. The jury's the Senate. That's how it works. Or any town in America could get their cousins together on a jury and say the president's... I mean, Travis County would have had Trump indicted before he ever got in office. I live in the Democratic county that's always indicting Republicans around the state and trying to put them in prison. They always get overturned, whether it's Rick Perry or Tom DeLay. But that's what they do. They're not all corrupt. But when it comes to politics, Travis County's famous for it. So that's what they're doing. And the word is now, Trump's being told they are planning to indict you for perjury. And then there's not even evidence of obstruction or perjury there. All the evidence is the Democrats and the FBI agents lying to Congress, but lying to the FISA court. And that's the key. That's why the Director of National Intelligence that Trump puts at the end of the letter released the declassified memo. It was the president declassified the body. Just took the names out of who did it. And that's it. It's the names of them going and lying to get it. I know I keep repeating that, but you're not seeing anywhere in the media, as usual, what this is. It's a threat from the president to them that we have you by the short hairs. You better back off right now. And we've caught you in perjury in Congress and to the FISA court. And I keep repeating this because it's bombshell that Trump says in the letter that's attached to the FISA memo what the next game plan is. He spells it out. Where the lawyers at the DNC 1,000% get exactly what he's saying. So here it is, January 18, 2018. This is the secret memo that was finished in January, 2 weeks ago, roughly. And they lay out the purpose, the investigative update, the whole roadmap, and then what they found. And I read it, and it's exactly everything you've already heard here over and over again. And they've had people testify in the DOJ meetings, not just the documents, that Orr, Strzok, all of them were desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. And they now have this from the deputy head of the FBI, who sung like a canary. And that's why the Democrats are crapping themselves up one side and down the other. They are in conniption fits. Oh, who's the FBI informant? The disgraced McCabe, who just resigned a few days ago. Okay, you may not go to prison, but you're out of the FBI. Get out of here. You go. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And Trump is signaling, be ashamed of yourselves. Be ashamed of yourselves. Stop trying to organize killing me and all the rest of it. And I'm telling you, they can't stop. You think Mueller's going to stop? That nut thinks he's the president. He thinks we elected him. Wow, this is just incredible. Let me read into the most important parts of this, and then I'll come back in and get into more of it as well. But this is simply amazing. Here it is on page 3. And it gets into it, just as we covered last week when we already all right here. It was already in the actual memo they're sourcing. Just now we have the names. Before and after Steele was terminated as a source, he maintained contact with the DOJ via then Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr, whose wife worked at Fusion GPS and was paid to create the dossier. A senior DOJ official who worked closely with Deputy Attorney General Yates and later Rosenstein, who appointed a special counsel. See? Rosenstein's their operative. Shortly after the election, the FBI began interviewing Orr, documenting his communications with Steele. For example, in September 2016, Steele admitted to Orr his feelings against then-candidate Trump when Steele said was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. This clear evidence, that's a quote, of Steele's bias was recorded by Orr at the time and subsequently in official FBI files, but not reflected in any of the page FISA applications. No, and then it gets into what they did say to get it, which is a perjury to the court. Oh, this is not political at all. It's foreign intelligence. We're looking at foreigners. During the same period, Orr's wife was employed by FISA GPS to assist in the cultivation of opposition research of Trump. Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research paid for by the DNC and Clinton campaign via FISA GPS. The Orr's relationship with Steele and FISA GPS was inexplicably concealed from the FISA. Yeah, they gave fake reasons. They did a parallel construction. We're going to go to break, come back with Roger Stone, and I'll read over more of this. This is huge. I don't even know if he's back yet from England, speaking there at Oxford to the faculty at the Oxford Union. If you like winning and you like turning the country back around and you like 2,200,000 new jobs and you like the highest wage increases in modern history and the biggest small business startups and Apple coming back to the U.S. and all the rest of this, you like the optimism, fund our operation. We're under total globalist attack. You can't put your money anywhere to resist Soros and Clinton and the globalists better than InfoWars, period. I thank you for your prayers. I thank you for your will. I thank you for spreading the word, the articles, the videos. You're the reason we're starting to turn the corner. But we got big specials that are going to end this weekend on 40% off on Brain Force, 40% off on Vitamin Mineral Fusion. We're selling out a Cell Force that will be called DNA Force. It's got more of the key ingredients in it at a lower price. So I'm able to lower the price. But I decided to call it DNA Force Plus just because that's really what it is. Well, this is going to sell it very, very quickly. It's 50% off, unprecedented, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot get a better product from our research. InfoWarsStore.com. InfoWarsLife.com takes you right to the supplement page, or 888-253-3139. The most advanced formula yet. It's technically 53% off. Cell Force, internal cell production, and energy production. Doesn't grow telomeres. Patented just the PQQ to not have them shrink as fast, which is the same thing. Chicken or the egg. Doesn't grow them, just doesn't make them shrink as fast. Same thing. Put fuel additive in, makes your fuel go further. It gives you 5 miles a gallon better. Did it put more total fuel in the tank? No, it put something in that made the fuel go further, which is the same thing in any equation. InfoWarsStore.com. Fund the Second American Revolution. Fund the savage forces of liberty, ready to take it to the globalists, no matter how high the cost. But as you see, as soon as we found our spine again, victory was laid out before us.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
He goes to jail. He goes to jail. Lock him up.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Mr. Armstrong, you'd mentioned in your answer to, I think, Ms. Spears' question, that there are other RTs operating in the U.S. Can you describe them, list them?
Sure, thank you. So you have RT, you have Sputnik, you have Rupley, and then I think you have them feeding other entities. InfoWars comes to mind, where those are echo chambers.
Dr. Comey, are you aware that Roger Stone played a role in the Trump campaign?
I'm not going to talk about any particular person here today, Mr. Schiff.
This bizarre circular thing happening where the president cites a theory that he was wiretapped, which developed on the kind of fringe right-wing media. And then after his tweet storm, InfoWars then started saying, well, look, it was the New York Times that reported it, citing our story, misreading our story. And now, a few weeks later, the White House and the president are citing InfoWars.
Are you aware that Mr. Stone also stated publicly that he was in direct communication with Julian Assange and WikiLeaks?
Same answer.
We're going to start shutting Alex Jones and others down, and we're going to sue them, and we're going to have the Justice Department come after them. And get this, folks, if they can shut us down, you're next.
You know, I think it's really important as we sit here that we explain this to the American people in a way that they can understand it.
We are at war with Russia.
So would you say that Russia engaged in hybrid warfare in its effort to undermine our democratic process and engage in our electoral process? Director Comey?
They engaged in a multifaceted campaign of active measures to undermine our democracy and hurt one of the candidates and hope to help one of the other candidates.
I actually think that their engagement was an act of war.
You said we were attacked by Russia. That's not a small thing.
Yes.
An attack
doesn't just invite a counterattack, it demands one, else you reveal your fundamental weakness and get attacked again.
Never in the history of our elections has a country attacked us the way that Russia has.
I think before government officials change our foreign policy and declare war against a sovereign country, as you all are attempting to do, we, citizens, have a right to know on what basis you're doing that.
If there is objection, and I note the senator from Kentucky on the floor, I will say before I read this, if there is objection, you are achieving the objectives of Vladimir Putin. You're achieving the objectives of trying to dismember this small country that has already been the subject of attempted coup. If they object, they are now carrying out the desires and ambitions of Vladimir Putin, and I do not say that lightly.
Senator from Kentucky.
I object.
Objection is heard.
The senator from Kentucky is now working for Vladimir Putin.
You're carrying water for the Kremlin.
I'm not carrying water for the... You're a sitting member of Congress on the Intel Committee, and you can't say they hacked...
You're gonna have to move your show to RT Russian television, because
you know what?
This
That's
is perfect.
Just so
this is perfectly
beneath your
placed.
office, because it's so dumb and you're being duplicitous. I'm asking you, did they hack Podesta's emails? And you can't say it.
Personal insults like that, Tucker.
You just said I was carrying... You said I was carrying water for Putin.
Russian scum! Our battleships weren't sunk and our towers didn't collapse a la 2011. But make no mistake, 2016 is a year that we should mark on our calendars. And it's still going on. The attack didn't end on Election Day.
Donald John Trump, a man who, to borrow a phrase from another December long ago, will live in infamy.
If we discover that Donald Trump or his advocates played a role in helping to devise strategy, if they're the ones who came up with crooked Hillary, if they're the ones who came up with she's ill, something's wrong with her energy, and the way that he basically, described her in the campaign, I think that is something that would put the question squarely on the table whether or not he should be impeached.
What do you think of our X2 true atomic iodine?
I want to tell you something about iodine that people don't realize. 50% of the American population and Canadian population as well may be deficient in iodine. Iodine is a mineral. It's one of the elements in the periodic table. And you do not get this iodine from plants or from food because they produce it. They get it from the soil, and you, consuming the food, take the iodine. Iodine is essential to every cell development, especially in children. And iodine is concentrated in the gland where it filters the serum coming through your blood and extracts whatever iodine is present. If the iodine is not present in sufficient numbers, your thyroid gland has to work double time. In the extreme, it reaches the limit. So then the pituitary gland sends a thyroid growth hormone to it to make sure that it's bigger so it can process more serum and get more iodine from it. In the ultimate extreme, it's called goiter. It's a disease. And people don't realize that if you are short of iodine, if you're deficient, your cells will not mature properly, develop, and never mind radiation coming from Fukushima. But at the same time, iodine enables your cells to develop. And it's very important for muscular brain development. A lot of brain problems and breast cancer may be attributable to iodine deficiency.
And by the way, you can just search engine, mainstream news admits iodine deficiency on average 15 IQ point reductions, then fluoride added another 15. It's all admitted. This is a plan where they bomb us with the bad halogen that our thyroid then uses, and it basically then gives us the swollen thyroid.